Welcome to the Dr. Sarah Experience podcast show, where we talk with some of the most amazing beings who are currently creating and shaping today's culture. And I'm your host, Dr. Sarah. Cody Heck, known as Hot Daddy Issues on TikTok and McDaddy Issues on Instagram, is an online content creator and amateur comedian. He's been an internet funny guy making skits and videos for over a decade. Offline, he works in corporate employee training and development as an instructional designer. He currently resides in Orlando, Florida, is working on his master's, and believes he's found the balance between creating an online presence while managing a fulfilling offline life. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Cody Heck to the show. I am so excited to have this guest on. And I know I did the introduction already, but oh my gosh, I am so excited to see where we can go in the conversation today. And again, Cody, thank you for coming on. And I wonder what we're going to look at today and discover and talk about. And so welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. And I'm really open to starting wherever you would like to start. Anything you would like to share with regards to the things that you're creating and being. And I mean, I have to say, I've seen your videos on TikTok in particular, and I laugh hysterically loud. People have to ask me, who are you laughing with? And I mention you. So maybe we can even start there or wherever you would like. I'm open to that too.
Yeah. As far as what I'm working on and creating, so outside of the world and what my followers are typically, and I hate saying the word followers because it sounds so pretentious and stupid. But what the people that have watched me online for a long time, because I've been on the internet since the ages of pre-YouTube. Wow. What I'm currently working on what my people that follow on social media are typically surprised to hear is that I have like a life. I go through weird bursts of online activity that it just seems like all I do is stay plugged in and connected to my phone, which is totally true. That's totally accurate when it happens. But I actually do have like a very corporate job, even though I look like this. And I'm also in my master's, and my master's degree is in instructional design. So I do like essentially like a design learning content for a living. And I also like facilitate and give presentations just like this. So I'm constantly in Zoom, I'm constantly public speaking. And right now I'm in the last semester of my master's degree, which means I'm working on like my capstone. So my online social media presence has kind of dwindled down because I'm working on my portfolio and things outside of here that are a little bit more serious. But as far as like life progression, actually, I start a new job tomorrow.
Wow.
Yeah, I haven't not tomorrow, Monday, because today's Saturday. So in 2 days, I will be officially an instructional designer, which is what I'm going to school for. So it's perfect. And the reason why that's really exciting for me is because I was actually recruited specifically for something that they want somebody that specialized in what they call edutainment.
Oh, wow.
So when I was in the interview, I was like, well, I know what that means, but I need you to tell me what you think that means.
Good question.
Right. And so edutainment in my world is essentially educating using fun, like comedy or humor or drama, like essentially it's like micro learning, like where I'm teaching you things in bursts, but I'm doing it in like a humorous and captivating way. So I know that you'll remember it. And wow. It's funny because like I learned how to do that from social media and the internet. So that's like
fantastic. And how you've brought it all together and integrating it into your world and your life. Like there's a very dichotomous feel to the online and offline, but at the same time, you're being it. And I sense you're like, just show up almost where you need to go and be it wherever that's at the moment, maybe even.
Yeah, it's really weird how it worked out. Like I always tell people that the reason why I have any sort of social skills is because of World of Warcraft and like online gaming when I was a teenager. Like,
wow.
It's insane.
Yeah. Well, I wonder because you're so having to be so present with people and interacting, and you develop it naturally and just like you're saying, what you're hoping to bring to the world by bringing the humor and learning and teaching through the design is that using things that actually work for people, like humor and lightness and small pieces that they can receive it. So that's brilliant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all my graduate research is on specifically like e-learning, remote learning, and then bringing funny to it. I gotta do it. It's all I have.
Well, it's all you have, but it's what you have, and it's amazing what you have because it's such a gift. And I'm aware of when we're willing to be whatever we're like our gift that we bring into the world. It's so much fun. I don't know if you even can call it work. I know the work I do isn't work, but it's fun. And when you have fun, it's longevity, and it can carry over to so many different things.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not gonna do the tacky like if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life, me. But I do love what I do, like from a fundamental point of view. And it's taking me a little bit to get there and figure it out. But when it does click, it clicks. I think the part that sucks about being like a funny person and like a funny kid, because like if you go back to the root of every person that's ever funny, it's always like some like traumatized child at the core of it. Like people that like have a dark sense of humor without like a dark past, no, they're not to be trusted. But like I was like a weird kid, and but grateful for bullying because it made me very on point, and it developed into the skill that I've kind of weaponized. Like I go into every room maximum performance value. And it really serves me very well in these corporate environments, especially being like I'm a fruity kid. Like I look fruity. When I walk into a room, I float. So
oh my God, it's great.
Served me very well.
Well, especially with those individuals that come in very concrete, linear. I like to call them humans, and then there's those of us who come in floating energetically and being more than a lot of them can handle, which are the humans, probably the ones I identify. I personally don't judge, but they tend to judge a lot. So that's where that probably bullying comes in. And like, once you probably went through that, and that would be curious to talk about, it probably allowed you then to see it coming and not have to be taken down by it anymore and know how to navigate around it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that it also comes from like people stifle their best qualities because they want to fit into some kind of certain box that they think that will make them more successful in that moment. But in turn, they end up not representing themselves or not using their qualities that are their best attributes. So for me, like objectively speaking, my only redeeming quality is the fact that I'm funny. Like I'm not very nice. Like I'm just going to throw that out there as a concept. I'm not an inherently nice person.
Yeah.
I'm like, not that I'm unkind or unpolite. Unpolite, is that a word? But I have to make an effort to be nice. So therefore I know fundamentally that that's not who I am as a human being. But I am and always will be like humorous. And why would I want to take that away from anything that I do? And it, like, be that online presence, be that social media, be that work, be that school, like everything that I do, I have to have a little bit of levity to it or else I'll go crazy. Like,
yes. Well, and you probably, the way you describe it, which is like amazingly well, and I love how you describe it, is that like, it allows you almost to remove yourself from it and show up and still be you no matter what situation you come into. And I really like this concept, and I've talked about this before, the difference between being nice and kind. And there is a difference, but like where we have to almost show up to this world and pretend to be a certain way, even though you're like, oh, I see the insanity in the room, which I call unconsciousness. It's not pretty oftentimes.
no, not at all.
So you get to do it in a way that humor allows us just to, I don't know if it's to get away with a lot sometimes too. I don't know. What's your awareness on that?
So, I mean, one thing that I've kind of lived on for a couple of years, I forget who exactly told me this, but it was when I was a teenager, sometime in high school. It was probably like an English teacher or something, given my history. But there was somebody that told me at one point that like the the funniest friend in your world is like the person that has the best judgment of other people. So always listen to them. And then I didn't start dissecting that until much later on, like probably within the last couple of years, actually, where I started actually getting to the root of why that person told me that, whoever it was. So if you're listening to this, like, thank you for that advice. And it's totally correct, because the funniest friend in your group is the most socially aware person, because in order for you to be a genuinely funny person, like we're talking like consistently funny.
Yeah.
And that person has to be aware of every single person in the room, like because they can't make a joke that's gonna like offend this little pocket of the room, but like make this little pocket laugh, because that's gonna create discourse, and that's gonna be the opposite effect of what they want. So I'm gonna go to the grave with that one. Like that's over.
That is phenomenal. And that is where you're picking up on all the energies in the room. I'm a proponent of getting a read on the energy, and then almost having to tap into it in all the different ways, where it's almost you can speak to the room, but also people can relate individually. And I have to say, when I watch your videos, there is that I experience that when you share, when you're funny and hilarious, and just the timing of it too. And I know I had reflected on some of the things that you've maybe shared with me previously about this idea of there being a timing, and maybe you could speak to a little bit of your craft and how you do, even though you're naturally being it, like you said, you have to be genuine with it, but is there like a formula or a little technique that you use?
When it comes to like making online content, I've learned that you can actually enhance timing with like really good video editing specifically. So like the humor that I have in real life is objectively a little bit different than the humor that I'm going to bring you online, because I have the ability to leverage video editing. But that also doesn't mean that I'm not also funny in real life too. Like I know I am. So but with video editing, I started making like little skits and stuff like that by myself. Like I grew up in a really super small town in Alaska, and no neighbors nearby. The nearest like kid I could have been friends with was like 5 miles away. And when it's like negative 60 outside, you're like, my parents weren't going to let me like walk to my friend's house, because then they'd have like this little child popsicle, and then CPS would get involved, and it'd be like a whole thing.
That's a whole thing.
So instead, I just like entertained myself a lot of time. That's why I got into online gaming when I was a teenager. But even before then, I like made little skits and videos, and I didn't really show anyone anything. I just made them for myself. And then, but I didn't know at the time that I was like harvesting this skill for like media content creation. And I'm 28 now, like I'm almost 30, and it's just really weird to see where all the little checkpoints of my life, how it kind of built up.
And who would have known that back then evolved to this now? And I'm aware that every choice creates, and you're naturally that being. And now you've actually created something and brought it to the world in a way that other people can receive it, which is where I use the word brilliant again. I think it's brilliant. So and you're willing to be that, and willing to be vulnerable and put yourself out there, because it's pretty just, it sets up for other people to give feedback, and social, like the social media piece in general is a window for that space too. But
no, I also think that like has a lot to do with just the audience that you garner as well. Like there's a reason why I said that I don't like using the word followers, because I just think it's like kind of redundant. Like I don't know, it's just tacky to me, because I'm just another person like anybody else. I just happen to have a couple, literally like just a few videos that just, they happen to get traction, and that's it. But I treat the comment section of every single video like a big group chat. Like I reply to whoever I feel like, and whenever I do, it's just like random-ish. Like I I guess I do have like a formula in how I'm going to deliver a joke or create a video. I don't have a formula when it comes to like interacting with people online. And the reason why is because I don't want to. Like I just want it to be vibes, and that's it.
Follow the vibe and the flow of it. And I wonder too that I love that you bring up the point of followers, because it makes it like above or below, where it's more like, oh, we're all on this and let's have fun together, and encouraging other people to be that themselves too. I sense that's what your presence brings about as well. And I notice that there's a timing at times when you actually drop the F-bomb or the fuck word, because I'll just say it because we can.
Your show.
I know, right? I know. But there's almost a sense of when you say it, there's just this like almost like it opens up a whole nother, like, I'm just gonna speak it like it is kind of part to the humor.
Yeah, that was actually, I don't know why, but like there was, when I started making TikToks, it was like obviously just like to hang, to feel the vibe of the new social media. But then I started, I had like one video that it got like a little bit of traction, like up to I think it was like 150K or something. And that was more than I was expecting. And then what happens is on TikTok specifically is that you're immediately in the For You pages of like your local area. So because I would like work corporate, I was like, oh, what if my coworkers find this? And then I got like I had a couple of videos that were like up in the couple millions of views, which now I had like NBC reach out to me for an interview, and brand partnerships wanting to do stuff like that with me, which is just stuff that I was not ever acclimated to, like capable of doing it, but not expecting. And I was mostly worried about like my job finding out. So I had to like reach out to my HR department and be like, hey, hypothetically, what would happen if I had some very controversial videos blow up? And luckily, I got to say, like, not like one of those like weird Karen videos, like the woman in Victoria's Secret, like none of that. But like videos about me making fun of different vaccine names and like the stupidest stuff. Like if you go back and look through it, like the things that I am like passionate about arguing about online are just dumb. And that's exactly what I love to do. I love complaining. I am fundamentally a hater before anything else. Before I'm an American, I am a hater. And I live for it. I'm going to continue to do that forever.
I love it, because when it comes in that way, it allows you to be able to see it in a way that lightens things up too. Something that's so heavy and given God, pandemic and all the rest, it's like we need something to get it lighter. And I sense, believe it or not, even though you're coming in with the hate, it's hilariously funny hate.
It's also minute. It's just like something to take the edge off, like a douchey situation, like COVID, for example. Like I have so many videos where I'm complaining about COVID, but it's always like the ridiculous parts of it. It's not even like the parts that we actually care about. And part of the reason why is because like there's just certain things in the world that are just silly, and they're not that anybody put them together. Exactly.
And you're putting it out there. It's like, yes, that. And it's just so good. It's kind of like, the brilliant show Seinfeld, the show about nothing, became a show about everything. It's almost like, it's kind of like how you're showing up with the content. It's like, yeah, this is that one thing. You're like, yes, that.
It's needling. It's needling.
Wow. And what's great too is that you're willing probably just to follow whatever that is for you and changing things up all the time. I recall you mentioning that you like to dabble, let's say even offline or maybe online too, and how you do everything is you do something for a little bit. It's a hobby, and maybe this is part of being the hobby, but then you get your fill of it and move on to the next. Is that kind of consistently how you live your life too?
Yeah. So I mentioned before that like I'm a serial hobbyist. So I pick things up, I put them down because I genuinely get like bored of things after a while. Yeah. And I forget I keep saying this, but I forget where I read this or where I heard this because I just consume so much information. I retain it all. But I know that one of the I think it was like a Brene, sorry, I know exactly where this is from. It was from a Brene Brown podcast on the concept of like neuroplasticity in the brain. I forget exactly the name of the episode, but she interviews this guy who essentially is like talking about how you should always like learn new things because it has a capacity to like fight against like Alzheimer's and stuff like that. So I try to also kind of engage those parts of my brain with virtually everything that I do in my like year to year. So like right now it's actually audio editing, like Adobe Audition. It's a part of my master's program too, which is great as well. So I get that fulfillment, but I worked in higher education before making this career transition on Monday. And part of the reason why I wanted to do that for so long is because like I'm a lifelong learner.
Yeah.
Above anything else. Like I just love to consume information, media, not so much like trivia. Surprisingly, fucking suck at trivia so bad. Super bad at it. Cause I just remember the most random bits of information, but not like dates or like the name of actors. Like I wish I was that kind of gay, but I'm not.
That sounds like a TikTok to me. Like, I wonder. But wow, yeah, that's awesome. And that you're then able to use all the different things and bring them together, if it's to contribute to what you're doing now or just go on to the next. I see it's all like you use it in some way or you retain it somehow and use it.
Oh, no.
It's all a contribution.
Yeah, no, it's definitely very cyclical. But also like maybe it comes in the form of just being a media junkie in general. I think that I may have talked about this at some point in my internet sphere, but like I cannot stand a what do you do for fun? I like to travel ass person. I don't like that person.
Oh, darn it. I was just going to ask you that question. No.
What?
I'm kidding.
Travel. I mean, who doesn't like to travel? That's silly. Like, what do you like to do? That's like saying, do you like music? Who doesn't like music? What a dumb question.
So stupid.
But when people ask me like, what do I do for fun? I'm like, I watch TV and I watch movies and I play video games. Like I like media. I'm a media consumer. I enjoy being current in media around me. And anybody that doesn't answer that way, I'm a little suspicious, unless it's like an actual activity. Like if you tell me like, I'm a writer, I'm a painter. Whoa, rad. You have like a talented creative skill. I don't. So I'm going to consume the creation of actual talented people.
So you'll see through the phoniness and like where it's one thing if someone's like a traveler and does it for like, oh, here's where I was just, last week and here's what you can receive from it rather than, yeah, I like to travel and like get my hair done. And it's just kind of phony surface conversation that's like ridiculous.
There's nothing worse than like, and so I live in Orlando, and Orlando is chock full of like, if I throw a rock outside, I will hit 5 people that are like globetrotters, but they don't leave the little tiny bubble that they go to the hotel in. And so they're not worldly at all, even though they have like a lot of stamps on their passport. And meanwhile, I'm like this kid from Alaska. Like my best friend in college was like a flight attendant, so we used to just bop around and for no reason, just like go to clubs. So like I'm a little bit more well traveled. I've had the privilege of doing that just because of who my best friend was in college.
Wow.
And I went out to dim sum. This is like 5 years ago. I went out to dim sum with a group of friends and acquaintances, and there was like 2 of them that came to dim sum, like traditional Chinese dim sum, and they're vegetarians. And not that there's anything wrong with being a vegetarian, but like you're gonna go to traditional Chinese dim sum and you're a vegetarian, there's no food that you can eat. There's nothing there. And they just sat there huffy puffy complaining about it while also simultaneously talking about how they just got back from Shanghai. And then and then I just looked at them for a second. I was like, so you guys ate at the hotel the whole time. That's it. That's all you did. That's so sad.
That is sad. But you know what? That actually captures more of typical mediocre living that a lot of people choose to do. I personally don't resonate that way. Kind of goes back to those humans that are just perfectly content living that way, and also are the ones that tend to do the problematic point of view. Gotta love those, where everything's a problem. They are the Karens and all the like naysayers, because that's how they function. Where I know I'm all about possibilities and like, okay, been there, done that, got what I required, next kind of way of being. Like, thank you, next, Ariana. I'll just
it's all about developing your own personal litmus test for like who you think is and is not a good person. So like, and there's a couple that we can all agree that are like really good litmus tests of like who is or isn't a good person. The grocery cart is a really good litmus test for that. Like, if you don't return the grocery cart to the thing, then it's right there. Like, you're genuinely kind of a bad person. Because is something going to happen? No, there's no punishment for doing that. But alternatively, another great litmus test is like the quiz, I guess, like the way that you eat. Like, when you ask a group of friends, where do you want to go to eat? And they say Chili's, get out. Get out as fast as possible. If you don't tell me a local restaurant, if you tell me Carrabba's, I will mustard gas this whole apartment before I do that. Like, it's over.
Yes, that's that. And that's the thing you point out to people as a way to be like, yes, hello, what? Oh my gosh, I love this. And as we're talking too, you are definitely embarking on a whole new aspect of your life. And I sense, like you said, you do it often, but is there anything too along the way with the master's program? What was that like for you to do? That's quite a accomplishment.
Yeah. So the actual, it's super funny because I worked as a senior admissions representative for years, and then for a university. And then I became a trainer for that department. So I was the trainer for like a staff of 200 people. It was the admissions rep role was like my first big boy job. The trainer was my first like big boy job. And then this new role that I'm getting is like my entrance into, and feels really weird to say, like traditional middle class US America. So I am embarking on that, but it's all been really funny because even though I worked in like university admissions for so long, I'm also a 3-time college dropout. I didn't start college until I was 21. I went to cosmetology school when I was 18 because I thought that's what like every fruity poor kid did. And turns out I was I got in there and I was really bad at it. Like, I can't cut my way out of a paper bag. So the reason I got into university admissions after I got my associate's degree was because like I didn't even know that I could go to college or anything like that for the longest period of time. And so I wanted to be part of the solution. I wanted to like help people that didn't know their options. And that served me very well in that role, like transitioning and moving up through it. So the reason I started a master's degree is because I wanted to like actually hone in on a specific set of skills within like learning, which happens to be like the field of instructional design itself, which I love, but also in the greedy, selfish reason why I started the program is because it's also like all about media content creation. So in addition to like feeding my career, I'm also actively feeding my social media presence in my classes. So it's like a double-edged sword that ended up working out perfectly for me.
Wow. And it's almost like as you continued to choose it and these things came together, it's like, that's really, and it's one of those things like, oh, I'm just going to choose it. And all of a sudden you keep choosing and it's created. And I almost sense at the same time you're aware of what didn't work. That's kind of half the battle, is to know what you don't want, a lot of times.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, please don't let this seem like I've made all the right decisions leading up to this. I am.
I'd like to.
Fundamentally, I am a absolute disaster. Like, I'm a dumpster fire at all of these checkpoints. There's a mental breakdown at least once a year, guaranteed.
Wow. Well, at least you know your process. That's a good awareness to have. Oh, wow. But I hear what you're aiming to do too, is taking everything that you've accumulated and give it out there to the world, to people that can receive it and almost either bypass that, or if they're going through that, then they have tools that are now available to them, and someone like you to deliver it, and them being open to receiving it, just almost like you were open to receiving this all along the way on some level.
Yeah, so I'm grateful that I've had like a lot of good mentors along the way. I think that that's what really did it for me, is like, I haven't had like a boss that I didn't love. And like and to this day, like I'm still best friends with like almost every boss that I've had in the last like decade, except for like when I was in high school, I worked at a Subway. And my and like the store manager, her name was Tasha. She was she was always calling out of work. So anyway, other than her, I've had a lot of people that really led me, but I think the reason why I am able to connect with like not only learners, but like people on social media in general at kind of like is because I build like a really weirdly intimate relationship with you, even though it is a little bit more one way. Like it's a lot of me talking at you, but I also am relatively entertaining when I speak. So that helps out. I have my Invisalign list right now. So if anybody listening makes fun of me, I'm coming for your lunch money. But regardless of Invisalign list aside, I try my best to create that kind of like intimate relationship. And I think that it boils down to me just being authentic and genuine, but I also wouldn't be authentic and genuine if I didn't have dumpster fire experiences.
Yes.
Like if everything worked out up until this point, I would be vapid. Like it wouldn't be interesting, because edge and grit is what makes people interesting. Like have you ever met somebody that like everything just worked out for them? They suck.
And then you sit there and it's like crickets, because there's nothing to talk about.
It sucks.
It sucks. Absolutely.
Like, they're the worst. I don't, and I'm not friends with any of those people. And not to say that like I'm exclusively friends with people that are like equally trash as me, even though I do tend to like lean in that direction. My favorite type of people are like, I also gravitate towards mean people. Mean attracts mean. But like only specific types of mean people. Either mean people that are like, they really earned it, like they earned it and they should be mean for a reason. Or alternatively, like people that are mean for no reason at all. Like
just bitter mean.
Exactly. Just bitter. Like we're talking like lady on her porch, like yelling at kids for no reason. I'm obsessed. I love those people. They're my favorite.
That energy has to come from somewhere that's just like pure. It's so pure. Oh my gosh. And it also speaks to, as you're saying this, like the relatability. You're really relatable. And that's where, like, when I'm watching it, I'm just like, wow, like you're talking to me, but you're including me because you're willing to point out, I call it like a conscious way of being. It's the good, the bad, and the ugly. If we don't call a spade, a lot of times it's like we see it, but we're not saying it. And that's not cool.
No, it also has a lot to do with like, first of all, I love gossip. So all of these qualities that I'm checking off right now, I love being mean, a hater, gossip. For those that are keeping score, I am a bitch. So next, I love gossip. And the reason why is because of like the anthropological source of gossip. So like gossip fundamentally is a survival mechanism for communal species. So like there are species of animals that exist in the wild that they survive because of gossip. Essentially, they purge like bad animals, bad actors from their tribe, their group, whatever, their flock, so that they can survive and not attract additional attention from predators. So human beings also have adapted to gossip as well, because it was a method for expelling people from your small little communities. Back when we were like primitive cave people, they would gossip, and they would literally like push the people out of their community. They would banish them, and they would be left to their own devices. And then natural selection occurs. That individual, they die because they couldn't get along with the group. So present day, like gossip was terminated from old like 1600s towns, because like the men that were in like governments and leadership realized that like women were gossiping because they were home with each other. And they were essentially like calling out the higher leadership representatives, and they were talking about them. And so these men essentially built it into their religious structures that like gossip was not allowed anymore. So from like a feminist perspective, gossip was extremely utile for hundreds of years. And so men were essentially trying to like keep women down, feminine individuals down. And so gossip has always been seen as negative or toxic or bad, but I have always seen gossip as like a really good thing. And I tell all of my friends all the time, when we start shit talking, I'm like, oh, I love talking shit. That's why I say that. And I say it so transparently is because you have to, in a community of people, you literally have to know who are bad people. Like,
yeah.
The whole concept of like the missing stare. Like,
oh my God. It makes so much sense actually though, too, because it's the people that if you don't, like you said, call it out or people see it, then who knows, they could be taken advantage of, or something bad happens if you're not actually speaking out what is I call it the heavy or insanity in this case, but gossip. I love this. This is, wow. It's brilliant. Again, I'm going to use that word again. Because I can.
Good. Thank you.
Wow. So is there more? Is there more to that? More of anything like that? Because I love these concepts. They're
yeah. I mean, I don't know why I know so much about this stuff. Maybe
all the gossip.
Probably. Maybe I've like subconsciously studied all this stuff because like I genuinely care about it in a weird way. Maybe I just like talking shit so much that I've researched how to be really good at it. And also if anybody like tries to call me out and be like, you're such a gossip, I'll be like, well, anthropologically speaking, do you know that me? No, I'm just kidding. I would never be a well actually person. Which is like actually, like I would never be that human being. But I am recently really passionate about it because of the whole concept of like I mentioned before, the missing stare, which I guess for people that don't know what that is that are listening to this, because this is a podcast, I have to keep reminding myself what platform this is. The missing stare is essentially an allegory for a community, but the premise is like there's a family that lives in a house and the house is 2 stories. And in order to get to the second story, you have to use a staircase, but the staircase has a missing stair. So the family doesn't want to fix it. So what they do is they just hop over the missing stair or they go a different direction to get to where they need to go. But then when somebody else comes into the house that doesn't know about the missing stair, they fall through. And then instead of the family like helping them or addressing it, the family just goes, well, I thought that you saw the missing stair. You should have seen the missing stair. And that's a big allegory for typically communities of people. Yeah. So where communities of people or families in some cases will essentially address, they'll have somebody in their family or their group or their community that is a missing stair. And they're either an abuser or a predator or just a fucking creep. Yeah. So everybody just adapts. They just get used to it for whatever reason. And it could be social status. It could be, it could also be like a work group, by the way. That's like the most twisted of it. And what they do is they just like adapt to that person. And so, but when a new person comes in, nobody ever warns them about that missing stair. And so what you end up is with this predator in your community that nobody's going to say anything about. And that's wild to me. And it's so true. It's so true.
Yeah. And it comes in all kinds of different forms, like gaslighting. It comes in as where someone then is afraid of making that person mad because they don't want to be the victim to that. And rather than empowering people to see what that is and have a choice to it, from which then they won't fuck with you because they know you see them clearly and they're not. That's in part probably how you keep all the predators away.
Oh, fully. Yeah. I had like a horrible, oh my God, vulnerable moment. I had like a horrible mental breakdown. Like I use the term mental breakdown jokingly typically, but I actually did have like a really awful breakdown because of a breakup at the end of 2019 during the holidays. And it was horrible. Like I was, it's just for like context, I was essentially like left for a friend, and and it was just so fucking rancid. And the reason like it hurt me so bad is because like our friend, I have had a sprawling friend group of like over like 100 people, and that sounds ridiculous, but I swear like there's just like an interconnected network in the queer community here in Orlando. So it's just like if you know one person, you know everybody very quickly. It's a big city but a small town vibe. It's really strange in a lot of ways. But because the friend groups are also intertwined, what ended up happening is that like I was constantly put in situations where I was forced to be around these people that hurt me in such a way that like it really damaged me, and it manifested in like depression, obviously, but then it manifested in like raw anger and like borderline insanity. Like I snapped in a way that like I typically would never do, because I was with a bunch of friends that were supposed to care for me, but they were constantly thrusting me into uncomfortable situations. So over the course of the last year, and the best thing that ever happened to me was the pandemic. That sounds horrible because like 600,000 people in the US have died. I'm so sorry. However, from like a psychological perspective, the only thing that got me through all of that was the fact that I had to lock myself in my home and think about it for a while.
Yeah.
And the reason why that was so good for me is because like I got to readjust all my boundaries, all my friends. And I've made a couple of videos about this, but there's something about when you go through a breakup with or you watch a breakup with a friend group, that people tend to want you to stay friends for the sake of the friend group. And it's so selfish and manipulative and weird. And if you are not comfortable and you're vocal about how you're not comfortable, then you're a problem. And it's just so shitty. Like and so now, present day, fast forward to now, I have culled so many people from my life just for the sake of my sanity. And it has been delightful. Oh, I can't tell you. My skin has cleared up. My bowel movements are so regular. It is fantastic.
Everything is now like unfolding with ease, it sounds like. But what you're bringing up too, though, is this like almost within group rejection or out group rejection of, it's almost weirdly enough resonates like a cult, where as long as you agree and align with what people are saying, then you could get along. But you were picking up on all these things simultaneously, by the lies, what they were telling you, and you're someone that's so in tune that would be horrific for you. Like that might as well, like it's probably the worst torture ever, because you had to compromise who you be in a space where people were like would wrong you for actually honoring you.
Yeah. And I think the thing that pissed me off the most about the whole situation in retrospect was the fact that like, you're not going to turn me into like a fucking Lifetime movie. Like, don't you, that's what pissed me off, is that like you put this on public spectacle, and I very much care about my image. Like for you to socially put me in that predicament, that's what probably made me react like that. And now I'm fine. I don't care.
Well, you know what it probably did is that like you saw the missing stare, right? Like you saw it, you're like, oh fuck no, this is not going to happen to me, Lifetime movie. And no one's going to do that to me. And that almost could be that shift and change, and where the pandemic was almost like a reset. Like I like to look at what's right about things we're not getting and what's right about COVID. You know, there's so many gifts that can come from it. And it doesn't mean you minimize the things that have been really intense. It's just acknowledging everything. And if you don't, you'll get stuck in one side or the other.
Exactly.
And that's where you probably saw your friend group was probably one side or the other on things.
You know, it's like so funny about that is that, and this is all reminded to me from a situation last night. There's something like very magical about drunk lesbians at straight bars. So I ended up at this like brewery here in Orlando because they had Jamaican jerk chicken, and it was really bad. But anyway, the best part of the night was this super drunk lesbian, and she was there with like her 4 guy friends, and she came up to her table. She's like, hey, can you help me settle an argument? You look like you know a lot about like relationship drama. Like that's how she started the conversation. And I went, go on, because I'm fully invested. And also she's correct.
Yes.
So she was like, so my friend, so I recently just got out of a relationship with this girl, and my friends over here like hated her the whole time that we were dating, but they never told me that. Like, do you think I'm in the wrong or they're in the wrong? Ooh, she picked the right one to ask because I was already prepared with this way before she even existed. So I told her directly, very quickly, probably shockingly quickly, that like, no, she like her friends are definitely not in the wrong. And then she's like, she wasn't expecting that. And she was like, wait, what? And I just told her that when you are seeing somebody, you are typically caught up in like this, I don't want to call it honeymoon phase, but these rose colored goggles of what the relationship is. And like, you can't tell your friend who is in that mode that you don't like that person, or else what they're going to do is they're going to like not talk to you. And it doesn't matter how long you've been friends. Like it's because they have this rose colored glasses, and like, you just have to kind of be there and be supportive for when it falls out. And I've been lucky to do that a couple times in my friend groups. So I'm experienced with that. And she actually like really appreciated the answer, which was awesome too. However, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because going back to like my situation, it's the same thing that when I went through that experience, I was my friends called me a wailer. When I'm upset, I wail like a banshee. So I sit there and I scream at the top of my lungs, and I just want to go like, I just want everybody to hear how I feel about these things. And that is not how you, and nobody listens to you, because you then become the soothsayer. You become the guy, like the evil is coming, the end of the world is coming. And nobody listens to you because it's just so crazy dramatic.
Yeah.
Which like, this is a total tangent. I'm a million places right now, but I also found out where that comes from. By the way, it stems from the whole concept of like the stages of grief, which I know that from like a psychological perspective, the stages of grief themselves it's not that it's not real. It's just that it's not real in the sense of how it was originally thought. So like the stages of grief of like anger, denial, acceptance, et cetera, they're not linear. They're not in any order. We just kind of bounce through them randomly, and that's how we get through it. But I found out that the stage of bargaining, so in my grief, in my depression of that whole situation, I literally went through grief counseling because because I was experiencing like a death, even though I wasn't. And because I'm so analytical, I did so much research on this because I just wanted to get better faster. So I was like, I'm going to research the stages of grief, and then I'm going to try to like speed it up. I'm going to try to like set dates to how long I can be in each stage. But that's not how it works, because then I found like the peer reviewed journal that was like, well, actually you just kind of bounce through them all. And I was like, fuck. But anyway, I found out that in the bargaining stage of grief, so I typically thought that bargaining was like, I'll do anything to get him back. Like, take me instead. Like, that's what I thought bargaining was. That's not what bargaining is. It's a small part of it. Bargaining is actually the whole concept of like the desire to tell your story relentlessly. I have to say what's going on. So it's like the mom that her kid has like a lung disease. And so she has to tell everybody that her kid has a lung disease because she's just going through it, and she needs to feel connected to people. And that's when I get upset, that's exactly where my brain goes. Like, I want to wail. I want to share it with the world, which also brings back to my social media again. When I'm genuinely upset about something or frustrated, the first thing I do is take to social media and I'm gonna bitch about it because it's fun.
That's your way of wailing with intention.
Complaining with purpose.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and it's also, I sense, your way of releasing it on some level, but it's great until it's not, until it becomes the story you keep believing in over and over again and limits you, rather than, okay, I did it, I'm done, next. Again, like it's moving on. But that kind of way sometimes can get, I kind of look at it as like a funnel effect, like looks like you're moving, but you're getting nowhere. Can have that, unless it's like, okay, and now what else am I going to choose here? And it sounds like you got there eventually.
Yeah, my hairdresser's a TikToker as well. We were talking about kind of like some of my stuff because I was telling her that one of my fears on social media in general is being like the the kind of content creator that I am just yelling about everything all the time. Like, like the straight boys that they just review other people's videos and they just scream at the top of their lungs about, "Oh, that's so stupid. Like, why would you do that?" And I don't want to be that person at all. I don't want to be seen as just like this highly negative individual.
Yeah.
And the way that she brought it up is that like, I'm not complaining in the sense of like, I'm screaming at the top of my lungs about it. I'm complaining in the sense of it's like a little cutting, but it's also like, you can tell it's dramatic on purpose. Like,
Yeah.
it's not entirely intentional.
No, but it's what makes it the ease and fun in the receiving of it because it's not so serious. And that at the same time, you're calling things out. And I think that's the beautiful combination that you weave in there, that it brings it to life and to lightness. And like, it's probably so natural for you. It's like, it really, I mean, you just do it.
Complaining is natural.
And it's magic. What's that?
Complaining is natural for me.
Yeah.
I love it. I've been working my whole life for this. Come on.
But see, even that, like, it's so good. And you're not like going at people. You're like, okay, like, you know where it's at. It's like you're an invitation into what's going on in your head. I love how it's all like the dabbling, but it all is in the flow of everything and being and all that stuff. And is there anything else, like, because we're still in the midst of our space here, like that would be fun for your followers to know, or anything else that is popping as we've been talking? Sometimes I'll get something, I'm like, oh yeah, that. And I'm like, oh, wait, what? I forgot.
I mean, as far as like on the social media sphere, like I mentioned, like I've kind of pulled back a little bit just to focus on school and specifically like my portfolio. So my portfolio is garbage. So I have been trying to like work in renovating that. The best things that are happening right now for me are the fact that like there's something really beautiful about transitioning jobs. I loved my old job a lot. I had a really good relationship with my boss. I loved the content of my work. I loved my trainees. Like I knew my content very well. I was admittedly pretty good at it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So it's something very scary about leaving that because it's something very comfortable for me. But in order for me to get to the next thing, I have to be uncomfortable for a little while, which also does certain things that I don't like, which is like take me off of social media for a bit so I can focus on big boy, real adult life.
Yeah.
But what's exciting about that for me is that what it allows me to do is just kind of like sit down and keep thinking. And I'm not creating at any point in time. I have like an app on my phone of like a OneNote. I have a joke book is what I call it.
Oh, I was wondering about that.
Yeah. So anytime that I like think of like a joke or something funny, or like I'm in a group of friends, and then I say something and it's a banger. I've actually made that a joke. Like I'll be with my friends, I'll say something funny and it gets some laughs. I'll be like, oh, I got to put that in my joke book. And I'll like pull out my phone, I'll write it down and I'll be like, hey, what did I just say? What did I just say? Remind me of what that was. And then I'll like taunt them with it. So I am still creating, and it's exciting for me because when I am able to like dedicate a lot more time to it, I know I'm going to be able to like come back and deliver really solid content. The thing that's been really important about TikTok for me specifically is the fact that I don't have a desire to make money off of it. I will accept free items, which I have, and I will continue to do. So if anybody would like to give me free things, I will.
You're available.
I love material goods. I love merchandise and crap. But I don't have a desire to make like a living off of it because I already make a living. Like I'm fine. Yeah. And I do believe in having like multiple streams of income and things like that. But like we've talked about this whole time, a lot of my ability to create content comes from my ability to kind of like vent. My ability to just like go to the top of the mountain and shout from the rooftops about something that minorly inconvenienced me earlier that day. And usually it's petty and stupid, but it's fun for me to do. And if I have to make money off of something, that takes away my ability to do that thing that I like doing.
Almost that linear space that we've referred to. And I love how you, and we'll get back to this, but how you almost receive the download or the moment of the creation in the way that you do. And even that's funny. It's all like kind of where then you can track it. And I'm aware of like being a creator too, where you have like, if you don't have 20 things going on at one time, it's like, it's boring or you'll suffer, without doing enough. But there's almost a timing to certain things. And when we go with our big asks, make sure I pronounce that correctly. Then all of a sudden it shows up and you're like, oh, now's the time. This job, you're now going into the completion of your master. Like these are the big asks that you've been asking for. And now when we get closer to that and the change of that, it is uncomfortable. And it never comes in the way we think it's going to, too, just to add that piece to it.
Yeah.
So that's a whole thing. That's a whole nother show.
It's ooky. Yeah. It's ooky, spooky, scary. The unknown. I literally used to teach like a training in collecting, connecting, and asking questions. And there's like different types of questions we can ask, and like open versus closed, et cetera, et cetera. But the questions that I think the way that when we're talking to people, we need to take into account like the tense of the question. So past, present, future. And it all kind of goes back to the concept of like the goodwill tank. And like you should be filling the goodwill tank as opposed to constantly draining. So like present questions are typically easiest to ask because it's literally happening right now. One time I was giving this training, by the way, I just want to complain about this, but like one time I was giving this training and I was like, yeah, present stuff is the easiest to ask because it's happening right now. So like if I, ask, when are you working tomorrow? Then like that's objective information that you can answer very quickly. And I had this girl in my training that was like, technically tomorrow's the future. And I was like, shut up, just shut up. You know what I'm talking about. Annoying. Anyway,
which is a distraction from the moment.
Exactly. She's just pulling focus for no reason. So, but like the relative present. So like a month either way. Yeah. Past is like the second type of easiest question to ask because like it's already happened. So it's fact that you could draw from. I'm not getting into like the weeds of like memory is not real and blah, blah, blah. Like that's too high level. Life is a simulation, whatever. But future questions are always going to be the hardest to ask people because everybody is scared of the future. And if they tell you they're not, they're lying. They're lying. They're every single one of them. Even like the insanely wealthy are afraid of the future because the insanely wealthy are equally afraid of like dying and succumbing to illness. So whatever.
Yeah. Well, what I like about what you're saying about the present questions, it contributes to our future, even though we can't predict it. And when we tend to predict it, that's where I could see the fear, like, oh my God, the worst case scenarios can come through. I call it thinking, feeling, emotions tend to get in the way rather than knowing, perceiving, receiving. Like it's different space when you're doing energy beings, but I know that was a lot.
That's heavy.
Yeah. I guess the difference, you ever notice when people do why questions, it gets them nowhere. Like, why is this happening? But it's perfect when you're gossiping.
Yeah. Oh, gosh.
That's perfect. Why questions are like superb, but they tend to limit us when we're trying to do present questions.
Fully. Yeah. So when you're explaining something, and this is like an old, so my undergrad is in business and organizational leadership. Please don't ask me what that means. I have a whole degree in something I don't know what it is. But like a business skill is like, you should always try to like present information in such a way that you're giving people the why, because the why is what's going to make people do things. So you should never leave like a conversation in that caliber with a bunch of whys because you should have already asked that. However, if like you personally are going ahead and like constantly asking why to other people, you're going to alienate them because it's like to make people have to feel like they constantly have to justify and explain themselves just to like exist in the same plane as you. That's exhausting. That's so sad. But
so
also,
pushing.
Yeah. Oh, completely. But it and the concept of like the future, I don't know, ooky spooky to me in general. However, like if I could go back and talk to like baby Cody, like little baby Cody Heck, there's so many people that like live their life in such a way that they're like, be the person that you needed when you were a kid. Like not what I want to do at all. I don't need to be the person I needed to be when I was a kid. I want to be the person that younger Cody would have thought was like super hot and also like talented and successful. I'm not talented, but I'm like everything else. So we're good. We got 2 out of the 3.
Oh my God, that's too good. Well, I would love to ask you, is there anything you would like to finish up with in terms of our show here, or anything you want to share with the followers, or anything, you know, that's striking you in this moment of sharing as we kind of transition out here?
Yeah, I think that if I were to leave with any thoughts, I've recently been kind of like approached by some people that are kind of like up and coming content creators, like people that are like trying to refine their content and they want to come in. And gotta be honest, like I am not necessarily the person that's the best at helping other people find their brand, because my brand is so niche and so specific and also very chaotic and random. Like my successes are like very, very this. The most important things for anybody to remember in the brand of social media is like, don't read the comments ever. Like, do read the comments, but like, know that when the comment starts with something hateful, don't bother reading the rest of it. Like, don't waste your mental energy on that. Don't bother responding. For the longest time, I had this like superiority complex about blocking people. I don't know why, but there was, and I think it comes to the world of online gaming, that if somebody blocked me when I was like getting in like an online argument in World of Warcraft, like that means I won the argument. I was like, oh, I beat them. But that's just because I was like a pretentious, shitty teenager. As an adult, I realized that the block button is like the best thing on earth because it shields you from just random stupid nothingness, like things that don't matter at all. So block button is your best friend. But also like when trying to find your own personal brand or like what you want to produce into the world, unless you're like making a web series or a show that involves actual characters, then you if you're going to be doing something more daily or more authentic, then you need to do just that. You need to be authentic. So like if you're going to make a character, it needs to be like kind of a dramatized version of yourself, because you need to work in the sphere of what you actually have to work with. So I love that. And then deal with the comparisons. Like there's so many people that when I operate, when I post a video, when I talk, and this is in my day-to-day, like I have a Valley accent from Canada. They're gonna call me Moira Rose or Alexis Rose, and I'm like, that is a genuinely great compliment. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
So find out what that niche is and fulfill it. And don't steal people's jokes. Don't do that. Tempting. Twitter is tempting for content. It's also why I have a Twitter, but I don't use it.
Well, you know what it is? You don't, genius borrows, and what is the other expression? Something steals. I don't know. Maybe I'm making something up. Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about, but I also don't know the quote either.
Yeah. Which is perfect, which is all about, it's not about having the copy. It's about being it in a new way that works for you. And I love that, because that's sustainable too. When you're just being funny and being the space, you don't have to make it happen by saying the same thing according to someone else. Yeah. It's the difference between this reality and doing it according to like, I don't know, magic.
Yeah. There's I mean, in the world of design, because that's what I do for a living, I don't make anything without references. Like if I'm going to be making an infographic, I'm going to Google blank, whatever I'm working on infographic, because I want to get an idea of like, what are other successful versions of this being laid out? I'm not stealing it. I'm going to make it my own. But you can, I mean, creators absolutely have the capacity for doing that too. If you want to if you want to draw a particular audience, then you should follow people that have drawn that audience successfully. And I'm not saying that you should take their content, but you can essentially emulate the formula that they're projecting without necessarily like stealing their voice or their jokes or their anything. But if they have, like, everybody has there's a formula to everything. Like, our brains have this desire to want to put things in order and and make meaning out of things that don't have any meaning at all. And so use that part of your brain and totally do that, because
use the algorithms to your advantage. I mean, hello. It's like, and it is like the formulas, the patterns, but the content is different according to you. So I love that. It's like, that's fabulous. And that's where people can relate. Like, this is something relatable, but this is the unique way that you're bringing it in. I say you're a living example of that. And I'm so grateful that you came on the show, and I would love to have you back too, Cody, at some point. Yeah. Would that be something you're interested in?
Yeah, for sure.
We could gossip about it,
I love it. We'll do another gossip episode. Well, this is probably the gossip episode.
We'll have to come up with a whole new shtick of something. I don't know. We'll have to.
It used to be, I was a hairdresser. I do know how to talk shit right next to somebody without them hearing me. I know exactly how far my voice carries.
Okay. We will have to pick up on that.
Thank you.
But thank you so much for coming on, and to be continued.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Thank you for being with us today. And be sure to join us next time for more conversations and insights into some of your favorite influencers. Now, don't forget to join me, Dr. Sarah, anywhere I'm on social media. And always, always, always remember that I have your back.